Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. Long time anticipated guest here who I've had the pleasure to meet with on at least a couple of different occasions, but today's a very, very cool occasion to talk about his time in sheds, his life in sheds. He's a lifer just like I am. I feel like we're just completely in it at this point, where there's no escape, it seems like, from the shed world. And he's got a very cool new product that he's launching that we want to talk about. So without further ado, Luke, do you just want to introduce yourself and a little bit about who you are and how you know the shed industry? Start me off somewhere.
There you go. Yeah, so I'm Luke Miller. I live out here in Western Montana. I grew up in Central Michigan. My grandfather, Yost Miller, would have started building sheds back in 1983, 1984. And then, of course, my dad did sheds. I do sheds. All my brothers do sheds. Yeah, there was nine of us kids, and I think every one of them is involved in sheds, other than maybe the one. Or my sister is. Her husband is a butcher, but otherwise everyone is involved in sheds. And so, man, it's been a long family history of doing sheds, and it's at the place now, Shannon, where I can't drive past the shed lot. I can't drive past the shop. I mean, it's that's where I'm at, and I love meeting the people. I love looking at the products. I love seeing the new ideas. There's all kinds of really cool ideas out here right now. Yeah, I feel like the shed industry is really changed. And talking to my uncles and my dad and then me and my brothers, it's really interesting watching the trajectory of the sheds, whether it was, the size of the sheds going back to 1984 when my grandpa started building sheds. I mean, we're talking 8 by 8, 8 by 12. 10 by 16 was so big it was almost, it almost made the budget. So, my Amish friends will get that one. But that was a big shed back then. And you didn't move sheds very far, and it was a local thing. It was small. I don't think my grandpa ever built more than 200 sheds, maybe 200 sheds in the last year. So he started in 83, 84. In 1997, he was delivering a shed over by Grand Rapids. If you go south on 131, I'm trying to think which road it was. No, it was 94. It was on 94, just over by Grand Rapids. They had a flat tire while hauling a shed, and he was parked beside the road, changing the tire, and a semi driver fell asleep and swerved over and hit him, and tragically passed away, him and his driver. So he was Amish at the time. So my grandfather was between the trailer and the truck, and there was no viewing. It was bad. So I always say my grandpa died while doing sheds. So that's how deep my history goes. But
That's some deep roots. I didn't know that story about your grandfather. I'm so sorry
yeah,
to hear that. Wow.
he was an Amish pastor. He was very quite famous in the Amish world at the time. He wrote the back page of the Pathway Publishers. If you've ever heard of like Family Life, Young Companion, I think it was mostly the Young Companion. Almost every month he'd have an article in there. He was quite widely known as an Amish pastor, and it was a pretty big blow in the Amish community when he passed away, for sure.
I'm
You know,
sure. Excuse me, I'm
so
sure. And you said Central Michigan is where you guys were, and so this would have been near Grand Rapids.
mhm.
Wow, that's
So my grandpa lived in Clare, Michigan. That's where the old traditional shop is still at. Miller Woodworking there, right there in Clare, Michigan. And then my dad started building over in Hale, Michigan, which there's still a small Amish community over there, and the shop's still going over there actually, or was the last time I was over there, which was about 5 years ago. And then later we moved to McBain and started Mid Michigan Barns, which is now owned by what is his name? Miller owns that now. Met him once or twice, but it's been a while. So
can't imagine it's a Miller.
yeah.
Just so common. And I've been by Michigan was part of my territory years ago when I was working more like as an RTO rep. And I loved Michigan, first of all. Got a chance to go up, and I remember some of the small communities that I was in or near. Some that maybe not even the name might not be recognized necessarily right away from a lot of folks, but like small communities like Standish. I don't know if you know where Standish is. It's sort of that central eastern Michigan, north of like Saginaw. But I
Hmm.
love going up into that area. I went all the way up to the very top. There's this is terrible. Please forgive me, but there's a shed manufacturer, small shed manufacturer, right at the top of the LP, probably about 60 miles east of Mackinac. And I really wanted to go over the bridge. I wanted to go see the island while I was up there, and it was just the wrong timing. I couldn't, and I guess it moved forward about 2 years, and me and my wife was able to go up there and go see the island, go across the bridge. We didn't get to spend much time in the Upper Peninsula, and Upper Peninsula folks, I would love to come see you guys, interview you, because that's all the more reason for me to go see this beautiful landscape that God's made in Michigan. So feel free, reach out, call, text, and give me a reason to come up there because I want to be there. But on that trip, we got to hang out for a little bit. So that was kind of cool. I got to see you while we were there.
Were you up in Mayo at the time? Was it Mayo? Northwood Storage, I believe.
We I think we were going to try to get there. We ended up going by and seeing Joe BC Barnes, Joe
Hmm.
Bontrager, and Seth Derby. We and Henry did some coffee time with them. Got to interview with Jeff Hebner and went to Cadillac. I love Cadillac. It's
Hmm.
I don't know why. I really enjoy being there and got to do some interviews there, and then eat eat like dinner with a whole bunch of shed haulers, a lot of shed guys and shed haulers. I mean, you kind of co come together on that. Like we co-opted that to get about 20 or 30 people there, and I thought that was the most awesome thing because I got to meet people that just like those are the podcasts I like to say, Luke, that they're the best podcasts on earth that'll never be recorded. And
Hmm.
that's why I always encourage people get together for dinners, get together for lunches, go to these shed events, sales events, marketing events, manufacturing events, expos, whatever they are. Whenever you go do that, they really do give back. You won't leave empty with those because those are the best moments to connect with people. So
Yeah, that was a great evening. It was a ton of fun, for
I
sure.
enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was at Herradura's, which actually closed since then, which was the only good restaurant in Cadillac. So now there's no good restaurant in Cadillac that I know of.
Let's see.
Um,
I don't know what it is about Cadillac. I love the lake there. There's just some really cool views from different sides that you come in, and there's a few cool places. This is something I've learned about myself is like when we get a chance to get out and travel. And we've slowed down a little bit since the grandbaby has come along, of course, but when we get a chance to do that, there's certain places that just feel like home away from home, and it's going to
mhm.
be, these might be weird comments, I guess, to some people, but like Cadillac always felt that way to me whenever I was in Michigan. There is a place in Kentucky, and of course, if I'm on the podcast, my mind would just go blank all of a sudden. But south of West Union, Ohio, it's the first city when you get into Kentucky and you cross the bridge. And for some reason, my mind decided I need to be old today. But they're just places you travel that you kind of feel like, very much feels like home away from home. And I appreciate those. Central New York. I love Central New York. I love the Finger Lakes area and going across there. It always feels amazing when I'm there. I've been surprised how much I've enjoyed traveling up north because
Mhm.
everybody always talks about moving south, but I've
Mhm.
enjoyed some of the more northern states, and we're
You
hoping
just
to
haven't been there middle of the winter. That's the only problem,
well, that's
Shannon.
that's right. I purposefully chase the weather, so I chase the sun.
Yep, yep. Don't go to Michigan middle of the summer or middle of the winter. You will not
That's
enjoy
a
it.
that's a
When
good
that
point.
when that wind starts blowing up there in the northern end of Lake Superior and it blows all the way across Superior, across the Mackinac Straits and starts hitting Cadillac, it gets cold, real
Cadillac's
cold.
not as fun then, you're saying.
It is not. It is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up east of, or we moved to McBain, which is east of Cadillac, about 20 minutes maybe. So I grew up right in that area. And it's beautiful during the summer, just gorgeous. But during the winter, the wind starts blowing, it gets cold. And then every about 10 years or so, Lake Superior will freeze over. And when Lake Superior and Lake Michigan freeze over, it's so cold. There is no other. I mean, it's straight off the Arctic right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a good point, and all the more reason why I'll go in the summertime and not the
it's
winter time.
yeah. Go up to Pierre Marquette and Painted Rocks area during the spring, probably about late May, when all those little waterfalls are. There's like a ton of little waterfalls up there, and they're just gushing, and like the flowers are all blooming. And then do the sunset cruise out on Lake Superior there by the Painted Rocks. It will be a memory like it's an unbelievable memory. You will never forget it.
Hey, we're gonna have to make it happen now.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. We're wanting to try to get to Minnesota, Iowa, North South Dakota a little bit here this spring, early summer. So any folks that are in that area, those areas, building sheds, hauling sheds, selling sheds, feel free to reach out. info@shedgeek.com. Call me, text me, email me, get on the website, fill out a form. We'll get in touch and we would organize something. I want to make sure to include everybody on the show, and we want to be able to hit all the states at some point. So,
hello. Today we're going to take a look at IFAB's component saw system. So we're utilizing a DeWalt chop saw. We've put it on sliders, easily to adjust. We've automated it using pneumatics so that we can run all these saws together using one actuator. We can either actuate with a two-hand safety control here or a foot pedal. The two-hand safety control comes with board clamps here, so to clamp in your board so you're totally hands-free. We've got digital readout up here to find your angle as well as your length. So we have a 90-degree saw here for your super long angle cuts. We've also got a conveyor on this system to take away your cutoffs. This system is completely modular. We can add as many saws as you need. The rails can be as long as you need.
For more information, visit www.ifabllc.com.
so let's move on, Luke. After you're born there, we've had all the fun. We know all the things. What did you do? Your grandpa, tragically passed. You sort of have followed in his footsteps and going into the shed life. So what did sort of like the shed life have for you? How to lay it out for me? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so after my dad married, he was doing sheds for a couple of years, and then he went and started farming. And there's no money in farming, obviously. Milking cows doesn't pay the bills. So in 2000, we bought a place over McBain. 2001, we moved over. So he went to McBain Lumber, bought enough lumber for two 8x12s in 2000. So this would have been 2002, and that was when Mid Michigan Barnes was born. And I remember that day very well. The lumber truck showing up with the lumber, and we built out on the grass. And I guess I don't know, it might run in the family because that's what I did when I started Bitterroot Sheds. Is I bought lumber and started building out on the grass till I got my shop built. But that was in 2002, and I would say about 2008, I would have been in eighth grade. In eighth grade, after I came home from school, I always went out and worked. And then once I got out of eighth grade, I was an Amish boy, but as you know, you only go 8 grades. And so I went to Dad and I said, Dad, I'd really like to get more education. Would you be open to me trying to figure out a way to go to high school? And Dad got super angry. And the next afternoon, he took me into Home Depot and bought me a new nail bag and all the tools and said, "All right, go work and forget about school." So that's all the schooling I got. But I love my dad, but he didn't have much for more education. That's for sure. He was one of those guys that after 8 grades, let's get you a nail belt and a tool and a hammer and some tools and let's go start working the shop. So that would have been probably 14 at that time. And then at 16, couple stuff happened, and my brother David, who's just older than me, he moved out of the shop and into the office, started selling sheds. He would have been probably 17 at that time, and I'd have been like 16. And my dad made me told me, all right, you're responsible to get these sheds built. And I was 16 at the time, and we had at one point there, probably when I was right that stage a little later, we had 13 people working for me, and I was 16, 17 years old and was the shop foreman.
Oh wow.
So I kind of got baptized by fire in that area. But my dad told me, he said, David's going to sell the sheds and you're going to build them. So that's uh, that's how that went. And then when I was 19, I went and started teaching school at the Amish school. Obviously, I have a strong inclination toward academics, and I really wanted to go back to school, never was able to do that. And then when I had the opportunity to go teach school, that was a big thing. So I lost 2 years there in the shed industry by teaching school. I love teaching school. It was one of the best times of my life for sure. A little Amish school, and there was two of us teachers, and these young kids, and trying to impress them the love of learning for sure that was awesome.
Man, I this is what I love about doing podcasts and why I constantly encourage people. You just never know what you're going to uncover as you start down a conversation with people, and what other people like enjoy about listening is these very things. My son got us a book for Christmas. I'm super proud of him for thinking this way, but it's called Dad, I Want to Know Your Story, and there's 100 pages, and it's just questions about my life. Where I was born, favorite memories, things like that as a child. And I'm filling it out right now to give to him. And it was an excellent Christmas present for me because it warmed my heart. But I got to a part about education. And, you know, I wrote in there just recently, I said, education wasn't something talked about at our family very much. Like we were blue dog Democrats, Reagan Democrats, hardworking, you work hard. This is what I remember from growing up in the 80s, right? Is you work hard and life is yours, and join a union and they'll take care of you, and stick together. The rich man's always sticking it to us. I mean, it was like,
Oh yeah.
this was kind of like the language that we grew up under. We didn't
Mhm.
grow up under, go get, educated, better yourself. My dad was one of 16, from a very broken marriage. There was a divorce and a divorce, and they had both had four, and then they had eight together. My mom was one of nine, so you'll appreciate that, being one of nine. She was the only
Yeah.
girl, and she was next to the youngest. But 10th grade education, or ninth grade, I think, for my mom, sixth grade for my dad. And then he had to, guess what? He had to, quit working, chop wood. That was, his dad said, boys would come over and they'd be like, hey, can they go play basketball or something? He'd be like, no, get out of here. These boys got work to do.
Yeah.
That's just the life they live. So my dad kind of knew that life for us too. And it was like, work hard. Don't worry about school. Don't worry about getting more educated. And because of that, I barely got to eke through high school, Luke. Eke
Mhm.
through. And I went back to college when I was 28, and I realized I love learning.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
I still love learning to this day. I mean, it's amazing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I've always loved learning. Learning has been always been just it's such a driving passion of mine. It's I can have an educated conversation about so many different things when it comes to learning, just because I love reading. Um, I love just opening an encyclopedia and start reading. It's amazing what you can learn. Of course, now encyclopedias are pretty much extinct, so now it's all Wikipedia. But and who knows how accurate Wikipedia is, of course. But you start with that for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. So you mentioned Bitterroot. So was that
Mhm.
after working, seeing Mid Michigan get started, all of that thing, did you just jump straight into that, or how did that come together? What was the story in between there?
Yeah. Um, so we moved to Montana, and I just got a job at a construction crew at 25 bucks an hour, and it's hard to raise a family at 25 bucks an hour. So we finally scraped enough money together to buy enough lumber for three sheds, and I built them out underneath that maple tree and built the sheds out there and put them out in front of the road, put a sign on them. I was Amish at the time, so I didn't have any Facebook or nothing. So an older lady that we knew, our neighbor down the road, she put them out on Facebook Marketplace and started trying to push them on Facebook Marketplace. She sold a couple, and then trying to think how that all happened. She sold a couple, and then I met a gentleman that helped me set up my website, and so we got the website set up and all that. And then in 2000, we moved here in 2017. I started in the fall of 18. By midsummer of 19, my boss at the construction crew told me, he said, "You're not investing in my crew anymore. Go build sheds." And he did it with love, and it was the best advice I ever got. So he kind of half kicked me off the construction crew, not fired me, but he was like, "Just get off. You're not invested here anymore. Your passion is with your sheds." And I was coming home from construction, working 4 or 5 hours after I came home, and next morning when it was time to climb out of bed, there was no get up and go in the morning for sure, because crawling around in pole barns and houses all day, setting trusses, and then coming home working 4 hours building sheds, just it's a lot, and my body pretty much broke down during that time frame. But
running a business can feel like trying to balance a dozen plates, except none of them are actually plates, and one of them's on fire. Enter Newfound Solutions. Think of us like your business BFF, always ready to lend a hand with whatever you need. Have you always wanted to start your own rent-to-own company but don't quite know where to start? RTO Partners is here to help. Overwhelmed by all the moving pieces in running your own rent-to-own program? RTO Smart is a software that encompasses everything you need on one platform. Or leave the rent-to-own up to us and focus on what's more important to you. Newfound Rentals has you covered with traditional rent-to-own options for your customers. Shed Connect understands the complexity of the digital marketplace. We take the hassle out of online sales and unlock the full potential of your brand with co-creative. We'll make your brand look so good, your audience won't be able to look away. Newfound Solutions, 5 powerful sub-brands helping you succeed across every aspect of your business. Visit newfoundsolutions.com today and let us do the balancing so you don't have to.
and then so we had our shop built at that point, and 2020 hit and COVID hit, and I was right on the right where I needed to be for sure, and just sold a lot of sheds in 2020, 2021 for sure. And COVID really, that whole push was awesome. Unfortunately, it was also, I definitely grew faster than I should have, during that time frame. And there's any young man on this listening to this podcast that wants to talk about what it's like to not be able to pay the bills and to really struggle financially. Don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'd love to listen to your story. And I don't have a lot of advice. I'm just gonna listen and say I'm sorry for you, because it's tough during that time. And during 2020, I sold during that summer I probably sold 60, 70 sheds, and we were booked out 3 months. And then in early August, lumber prices just absolutely spiked, and I did not have enough lumber on storage to cover all the sheds I had sold. So the last 30 sheds I lost my tail on because lumber just doubled, and I didn't have enough lumber to cover it. And that's something, that I definitely learned a lot from. But when you're young and dumb and you're a good salesman, you sell sheds, and you think sales fix all the problems, and it does, Shannon. Sales fix a lot of problems, but it does not fix all the problems. And so, but those were some tough times, but it was also some good times. I mean, we sold a lot of sheds, and Bitterroot Sheds was very successful for sure. At the end of the day, it was very successful. But I also know what it's like to really struggle financially and to not know how to pay the bills. And you got a lot of assets, you got a lot of profit, but the cash flow is killing you, because in the shed industry, cash flow is definitely the number one killer of shed businesses.
There's been so many shows I can think back on already now, over 300 of these that we've done, and a couple of them where we've really talked about, what it's like to know your numbers, have your systems and processes. When we discuss, I would say that sometimes I feel like we're doing a consultation without actually putting a title on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely wouldn't consider us a well thought out consultative company, because that's not really what we do. We do it by default. We don't really do it intentionally. We do it because we want to help, right? And I meet so many people in the industry, and I've met so many people who talk about just different stories. Some your stories about their experience, and some about what they offer is a solution to that, and trying to make some sense of everything in between there. Systems and processes. Whenever we're talking with people about trying to increase their sales or boost their sales, either through some kind of like direct sales or marketing or whatever it is, I'm like, hey, you do understand every action has a reaction, right? if you grow your business from 5 to 7 million or 5 to 8 million this year, think about, the amount of growth that is, and think about all the other things that affects both negatively and positively. Right now, you can order maybe in more bulk lumber. You can order and get a better price, but you're also got to have a place to store that. Maybe you don't have a place to store that. Who's going to store it whenever it gets there? Who's going to move it from here to there? Are you going to be able to increase the efficiency of your manufacturing? Because if you grow in 3 million in sales, who's building those? Who's hauling those? Do you have the trucks to take care of those? I mean, it almost becomes a consultative conversation again without meaning to. It's by default. It's like, hey, this is a statement, I would write down for anybody who thinks that anything I have to say is worth a nickel. Everybody prepares for failure. Think about that. Everyone prepares for failure. Hardly anyone prepares for success. And what I mean is, like, you're even told, at least we were from a young childhood, like, you got to have something to fall back on. Like, these were words that were embedded in our head as children. Yeah,
Mhm.
that, but then you need to have something to fall back on. It was always like prepare for the failure so that if it happens, you're not caught off guard. But what I've been most surprised at is the people who have had success and then didn't know what to do with it or what direction to go with it because you're just used to the so listening to your story there without knowing all the details, it kind of fits. It's not as much that Bitterroot sounds like it was failing because of the troubles you were having. It was having so much success you didn't know, where do I go with this and how do I create
Mhm.
systems and processes, and I'm young and I haven't been through this yet. I need a mentor, someone to guide me, or does that sound accurate?
Mhm. Absolutely. And it was just the all these sales, all this cash coming in, all the, everything looks good. And then it's like, oh, well, let's do more of this. It's almost impossible for a young guy, ambitious like me, and, just a driven salesman to say no to a sale. And I really should have said no. Not necessarily no, but just said we're not going to increase our production. So I kept on hiring people and hiring people. And, we went from our first employee, in 2020 to having 13 employees by 2022. And, we just kept adding employees and put a bigger shop up and selling more sheds and putting more sheds out, which, I mean, it's all fine and good, but it also brings a lot of struggles for sure. For sure. And then, the, and again, when I look back over my life, I've made a lot of mistakes, but in 2017, when we moved to Montana, we moved to like this super aggressive Amish church, and they had this thing that when you join, you had to promise if you ever leave their church, you will move out of the area. You will no longer remain in the area. And so we moved out here from Michigan, and we made that promise. And I'm telling this story because I have a point for here. And I made that promise, and I wish I really regretted that promise since then. We chose to move on from there. And so when we left the Amish church, we knew we had to move out of the area, and that was in 2021. And so I reached out to Sam Byler, from Reach a Friend, and was like, I'm gonna have to sell Bitterroot Sheds because we have to move out of the area. And now a lot of people were telling me, well, that's a dumb promise. You never had to make that promise. It's America. You can do whatever you want. But I felt like I couldn't live with myself if I didn't keep my promise. It was a promise I made. I knew what I was making the promise, and I felt I needed to move out of the area. So in 2022, Sam connected with me with the Coleman brothers and JMac there, and they came in and made me an offer and purchased Bitterroot Sheds. And we were going to move out of the area because that's the promise we made. Well, funny enough, about right as the closing came in, just before closing, I found out all the Amish are going to move out of the area, and the whole church is going to disband. So I was like, well, no, I don't have to move out of the area because they moved out. But I already made the commitment and signed the agreement with Coleman Brothers to sell Bitterroot Sheds. So that's why I sold Bitterroot Sheds. One of the main reasons why I sold Bitterroot Sheds. And so that's why I don't own Bitterroot Sheds anymore. And it's a promise I made, and I you know it's one of those things that if you make a promise, keep the promise. At the time, and do I regret selling Bitterroot Sheds? Do I wish I would never had to sell Bitterroot Sheds? Absolutely. I regret it every day. the backside is I feel good that I sold Bitterroot Sheds because I kept my promise.
Hello, shed builders. I'd like to grab your attention for just a moment. As we look ahead to 2025, one thing is clear. Customers will have higher expectations than ever before. Shed consumers have an unprecedented access to information. To stay competitive, you need to create sheds that are not only high in quality, but also rich in innovation. You might recall my friend Dan Ream, one of my early podcast guests, who introduced Solar Blaster fans, specifically the Solar Roof Blaster. Dan has been busy handling orders, and he's eager to speak directly to shed builders about his groundbreaking products. What stands out to me about Dan's products, designed specifically for sheds, like the Solar Roof Blaster and the Solar Light Blaster, is how they enhance the shed owner's experience. With the focus on quality, it's time to start thinking about adding features and benefits for the end user. Here at Shed Geek, we wholeheartedly recommend Solar Blaster as the solution. My favorite thing about the entire line of products? The support you'll receive from Dan. Not only is he incredibly knowledgeable about these products, but he's also one of the most customer-focused individuals I know. He truly stands behind both his product and his service. We're searching for companies ready to elevate customer satisfaction to the next level. To learn more, just visit solarblasterfans.com and fill out some basic information for a callback, or connect directly at 480-747-7097. You can also check out the Shed Geek newsletter, where a click on the Solar Blaster ad will guide you to a form for more information and some cool videos showcasing the products. Let's power up innovation and elevate customer experiences together.
Well, I kind of remember that time, and it seemed like you had plenty of opportunity though at the same time. I mean, I think you were doing some stuff in Indiana, doing some stuff in Michigan, and we've, at least me and you've connected on at least a couple different points throughout the years, and certainly I always admire reading your thoughts, like many others in this industry, as they share things on social media and stuff like that. So I hate to admit that certain people grab my attention more maybe than others. No offense to anybody who, I suspect not everybody listens to every single podcast episode. So trust me, it's not as though I'm naive to that, right? So
I don't get them all done myself, Shannon. I'm sorry,
hey,
but
I totally get it. I always tell people I've got favorite podcasters I listen to, and I don't even get to all of their shows. And I love to listen to some of these folks, but life is such that it's that way, and we don't put it out there to try and get everybody. We put it out there, and life does its thing. So when you can listen, and hopefully you listen to the right ones, if nothing else. So, but yeah, I love that we've connected on that. So now, would you say that you just jumped into different, this different alley altogether, this new direction, but still shed relatable?
no, I'll never get out of sheds all my days. I'll be 80 years old someday and still be doing something in the shed industry.
You'll be talking about it on a front porch in Montana. How about that?
Hey, sounds good to me. Sounds really good to me. So just to back up, like I was saying earlier, when my grandpa started back in the 80s, an 8x16 shed was big. We didn't even do wide loads at the time. 10 wides were unheard of. And then, my dad's era, a 12 to 24 was big. So, until from about I say about 95, my dad would have started building, the bigger sheds started coming in a little bit more, 12 by 20 started coming in, and then 12 by 24. And then about 2008, 2009, we did our first 12 by 32, and that was a big shed. And then we did 14 by 32, and that was like, how do you dare drive that thing down the road, type of scenario, and we might have been, a little later than some of the East Coast people. They probably got in the bigger sheds a little quicker than we did, but and then in Bitterroot Sheds, come 2015, I started seeing the bigger ones coming out of mid-Michigan, and then when I started Bitterroot Sheds, I learned pretty quickly that people out here, they want their 16 by 32s and 16 by 40s, and even bigger now. There's a couple of companies out here that are doing bigger than 16 by 40s. Especially if you go down to Texas, they're doing 18 by 64s and stuff like that. And you're like, it's a it's a that's a lot to take down the road. I admire those drivers a lot. I mean, I take 16 by 40s through Missoula every now and then, and it's and I think that's bad. And they're taking these big ones right through big towns, and I'm like, you guys are just nuts. But that's kind of the direction the shed industry is going. And at the same time, especially since COVID, there's been so during COVID, a lot of companies, myself included, grew a lot. And since then, I've seen a lot of companies that are kind of trying to diversify a little bit, and a lot of them are going to the tiny home, cabin, auxiliary dwelling type of stuff, and we got in that as well. So toward the tail end there, we did a couple auxiliary dwellings and stuff, and I learned really quickly the pitfalls of doing auxiliary dwellings, and that is cash flow. Cash flow is one of the cash flow, and then dealing with subcontractors is a big thing. So after I sold Bitterroot Sheds, I was talking to an old gentleman who's been in the shed industry forever, and we started talking about it, and I started brainstorming. And man, it's been a journey. But now we're doing the Easy Bath, which is basically a fully encapsulated bathroom pod. The way I tell people to think about it, think of it as a bathroom that comes on a pallet, a full bathroom, including the hot water heater and everything. It all comes on a pallet. You set it inside your shed, anchor it to the floor, and you have a bathroom done. And we say it takes about 20 minutes for the average guy to set it in the shed and put the anchor and screw it down to the floor, and you've got a fully encapsulated bathroom right in your shed. And so they're right now they're mostly going into the like the cabins, but we've got some tiny homes coming in, some tiny home manufacturers. We've got a guy that's doing park models. We're talking with him about put him into his park models, and he has everything set up. But like he was telling me, he's like, all the subcontractors are coming in, and they're doing their thing. You have your plumber coming in doing his rough end, you have an electrician coming doing your rough end, and then they all have to come back 2 or 3 times, and it's really hurting his workflow. And so we're talking to him about putting the easy bath right into what he's doing right there.
So you might have to walk me through this a little bit because I like to think that I've got some construction knowledge. Have spent a small amount of times building homes. I actually built my first shed ever at our first home. Did it all by myself, just based off my home construction learning, and it's still there today, so that's a good sign.
Hey, it hasn't blown away.
No, it's still there 23 years later. So every time I drive by, I'm kind of proud of that. This is long before I even actually got into the shed industry. And at that time, I think, let's see, my brother bought one. So he would have bought one from Cook Sheds, which is, I've talked about this before on the podcast several times in Southern Illinois. I think they started in 86, and they were just kind of notorious for sheds, at least in our area. I felt like that was the biggest name and the biggest brand. And my brother bought his, ended up selling it to my father-in-law. There's a really good shed hauling story there if you ever want to hear it sometime, which includes using hydraulic jacks to get it up in the air, four-wheelers to drag it down, and moving it on the top of an angle iron 6x12 utility bed trailer with a HD pickup, 14 miles with the tires pancaking the whole time, and a tractor. Oh, it got really intense. So we were your $200 or 250 guy before they ever existed, but we only did it one time, but I built my own. And so when I think of like Easy Bath, I think, well, walk me through the process. You have to have an open wall, I'm assuming, in order to put this in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so the way most people are doing it, and there's a couple different ways to do it. Most people, they built their walls, all their walls on top of their floor, and so they'll set up the back wall, the back gable first. That's the way most shed builders are setting up their walls, the back gable, and then they set up the two side gables, and then usually they slide the front gable off the wall, or they build it off to the side. I see a lot of people build them off to the side on the floor, or whatever. And then so you just grab your forklift. You got to have extendable forks. You got to have at least 6 foot forks. And so grab the forklift, pick it up, and just set it right on top of the floor of your shed. And then if you want to move it around inside, you can just use a pallet jack to move it around inside your building and get it. And it's just like moving a pallet around at that point. And just move wherever you want it. And then there's 4 brackets that come with it. You can screw that right down to the floor. Right. You need to hit a joist when you screw that down.
Introducing Shed Hub, your ultimate shed marketplace. Are you in the shed business and looking to connect with more buyers? Look no farther than ShedHub. ShedHub is a game-changing, two-sided marketplace that brings shed sellers and buyers together in one easy-to-use platform. Think of it as the Amazon of sheds. ShedHub isn't just any ordinary marketplace. It's a powerhouse that ranks on the first page of Google's search results in 91% of U.S. cities. With over 1.2 million impressions on our website last month alone, ShedHub is where you want to be to showcase your sheds to a wider audience. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can join our exclusive Next 500 plan for just $39 per month. Simply head over to geek.shedhub.com to sign up and start attracting more shoppers to your shed listings. As the Shed Geek, I am here to endorse ShedHub and invite you to join me on this journey to boost your shed business. Whether you're struggling with website visibility or simply want more eyes on your product, ShedHub has got you covered. Don't miss out on this opportunity to supercharge your shed sales. Visit geek.shedhub.com today and make your mark in the shed industry with ShedHub.
And I'm assuming, because I know I've seen them, so I'm not assuming at this point, but you've got some YouTube videos that kind of talk a little bit about that. Maybe we can put a link in if possible or something like that, but where people can go and find out more information, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So you can go to my website, myeasybath.com, or you can check me out on YouTube. My YouTube handle is Amish Light. So there's a couple. That's my type of humor, you know.
I love it.
It's
I love
Amish Light, so just look for me under Amish Light, and there's a bunch of YouTube videos on there as well. And there's a lot more coming out. So don't if you don't find what you want, just ask for it. And I'll do a YouTube video and put it out there for you.
So walk me through this a little bit. I'll ask questions that I'm going to try to play customer here, or your customer not being the end user of the actual bath and the cabin, but the industry, right? The industry that you want to be able to sell these units to. You got a hot water heater. So like, how does this work? I'm assuming it's an electric tankless, but maybe not.
Yeah, so you can either get electric or the gas. We offer both.
Okay.
So electric or gas, they're both Renai. And so the electric is a 240, 5.5 gallons per minute. So it's more water than you'll ever use. You can open multiple faucets at the same time, which is what I have in my house. And I was like, that's something super important to me as an on-demand hot water heater. So there's a little utility closet in the back, and there is the hot water heaters back there. So when you purchase this, the manufacturer will set it into the building. And it takes them about 20 minutes to hook it up. And then the customer, after they receive the building and it's all set up, they have to hook it up to their existing utilities. So there'll be five basic hookups. So you have the cold water coming in, and then you have the sewer going out. So there's one 4-inch sewer line going out. Everything's connected. So you got a vanity, you've got a tub or a shower, depending which model you get, and a toilet, and it's all hooked up into one 4-inch line in the back. So there's a access door, you can just hook it right up there. And then you have the electric. It takes a 240. Trying to think, it depends on how far you're coming, but my electricians tell me mostly 3-gauge wire, 2 or 3-gauge wire. And so it takes a little more electricity if you have the on-demand hot water heater, electric on-demand hot water heater, whereas if you have gas, then it doesn't take nearly as much electricity. And so there's a 100 amp breaker box in the back that the electric gets run into. And then you have the exhaust vent, so you got your fan that everybody has to have. And then you have your drain vent. So all the drain lines have to be vented per code. So you've got 5 easy hookups, stuff that I'm gonna do it yourself for a little bit, but I can do it in probably 3-4 hours, depending on how far I'm going with it. If I have to run the drain line up ways, it take a bit more than that, but 3-4 hours. So that's why that's why our tagline is bathroom in a day. We say any half competent DIYer can purchase one of these easy baths and have it set up in a day.
Well, and it could probably eventually turn into upsells for manufacturers who really want to, either take that on or subcontract that out to some extent. Maybe there's a small residual amount that they can earn off of that. But more than anything is you said something that was key earlier. You said, the shed industry seems to be moving more towards these large sheds, and it seems like people are wanting more off-grid or more affordable housing just because the days of old just don't seem to be America. I don't know if they're coming back in terms of like, how we live financially, but there seems to be a little bit more attempt at least to equally distribute wealth among most people to where the average person is falling behind. We're going to get too political here, aren't we? But we're almost
I was gonna
falling.
say that's that old Democrat coming out there.
Hey, listen, I'm not saying I love
You're
you.
an old blue collar Democrat. I'm telling you.
I love it. Yeah.
Actually, that's where my natural inclination is as well. So I totally hear you.
Well, it's. I'm not saying that I'm just a fan of the redistribution of wealth, the infamous, Obama line. I would say I'm more inclined to want to see people have their basic healthcare needs met, right? So, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? I'm probably somewhere in between. I'm somewhere in between. I like to consider myself a centrist on many things, but I find that I'm not always once it comes down to it. But my thought behind this is like people are looking for homes, right? Like, maybe they can't afford what a typical American home costs now, your average American home. And they're looking for alternatives. And it's been my experience, Luke, and I'm curious about yours and even others around the industry, is just how welcome that is among municipalities, especially the more, larger the cities, obviously don't like that typically, right? But your more rural areas that don't fall under HOA, but we all still fall under like these IBCs, these international building codes and things that are necessary. But you've kind of addressed all of that with this, and people are, or at least I think you have, and people are always looking for something finished out in a shed anymore. Doesn't it
Mhm.
seem that way?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And so what happens is a lot of people come in and they don't have much money, so they buy a shed, a cabin on either rent own or cash, and they purchase and they're going to finish this thing out. And they're all fired up about it. Man, I'm going to make this thing gorgeous. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do that. Give it a year, and you go back and you either repo it or you move it because they sold it, and there's a couple pieces of sheetrock nailed up and some electric lines put in, and that's it.
Man,
You
how
can tell
accurate
they
is that?
they got the building and they set it up and they're all fired up about it, and they get out there with their tools, and they got their hammer and they got their cobalt drill, that barely works, or their Black and Decker drill that barely works. I mean, sorry, DeWalt guys, but anyways, and and they get out there and it's overwhelming. It completely overwhelms them, especially the bathrooms. The bathrooms are the big one. Because you got to do drain, you got to do the electric, and you got to do the shower, and you got to do the vanity, and it's overwhelming. Now, a fair amount of them do figure it out eventually, or they end up hiring people to do it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think probably half of the shells I've sold never got moved into by the original purchaser.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
and
it's so overwhelming.
you're exactly right about, I used to spend a lot of time. A matter of fact, I had guys in our sales office that was like, "Are you trying to talk them out of buying it, or are you trying to talk them into buying it?" And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to avoid problems as best I can down the road. And while I don't, want to spend people's money for them. I want to educate them as best as possible. And if you're really trying to help them, you can tell exactly what you said in most cases, with just a few questions whenever somebody would come in and you'd be like, do you really understand what this is gonna like, what kind of project this is gonna be? And I can remember one specifically, a couple that came in and 16 by 60, one of the biggest sheds we ever sold, custom.
That's a big one.
Oh yeah, custom front door, it looked really nice. Had a couple dormers, tall, tall roof. sold it, and this husband and wife did a tremendous job. They did an excellent job wiring it. You could tell they either done it professionally or had it done professionally. She found out she had cancer, and 6 months in, they had to give it up.
Mhm.
So we got it back on our lot, and I really felt bad for her because you could tell that it wasn't just like we can't pay for it. It was like a real situation, and I wish I'd have followed that, followed up with them closer. But it comes back. We have somebody else come in. They want to buy it, and I just know enough to ask enough questions to feel like I knew that they weren't these new buyers just were not educated enough on what it was going to take to do this process. They saw some of the stuff that had been done and thought, well, we can just take it from here. But I began to ask questions. Look, I even had some leftover like bat insulation from a project. And once the shed got delivered, I took like 2 rolls over to them and said, hey, here's a small contribution, but here you go.
Mhm.
Really appreciate it. I could just tell, and I kind of wanted to get their mindset around it. And I guess it was a year later that the driver, went out and exactly as you said, had to go pick it up, and they were very combative.
Mhm.
The communication fell between them and the RTO provider over that course of that year. And of course, the guy pulls a gun on the driver whenever he comes out, finally to come
Oh
get it.
man.
So, like, you have this, and you're like, I'm trying to avoid every single bit of these problems with good education, good communication, and I was just stuck. I felt very stuck because they almost got really aggressive towards me whenever I didn't want to proceed with the sale, uh,
Mhm.
and felt I was profiling them perhaps.
Mhm.
And at some point, I had to say, okay, let's move on. Here, you got the money. Here's your shed. But then, I tried to
Mhm.
avoid the situation you felt like was playing out just because they didn't really have it. And
Are you ready to elevate your shed business to new heights? Your pathway to success just got a whole lot smoother with ShedSuite's innovative marketing platform. At ShedSuite, we like to think we understand the shed industry at least a little bit. And over the last 7 years, we've been building awesome software for shed businesses. We focus first on building easy to use software to help you create and track orders, like the point of sale and after the sale order fulfillment. And now we're excited to announce our full feature CRM. All things pre-sale, like prospecting and follow-up, all to empower your shed company to market better and sell more efficiently. Our platform empowers you with a marketing toolkit designed to amplify your online presence, engage your audience, and drive sales like never before. Enjoy the ease of conversion tracking, email marketing, centralized lead communication, and so much more. Oh, and guess what? It even comes with an iPhone and an Android app. With ShedSuite's marketing platform, crafting and deploying effective marketing campaigns is a breeze. The advanced reporting functionality allows your team to analyze real-time conversion data so you can make informed decisions and watch your business flourish. There's no better time than now to join the community of shed business owners who are scaling up with ShedSuite. It's time to turn your marketing efforts into real trackable results. Visit shedsuite.com/marketing to get pricing, explore the features, and book a demo. ShedSuite is committed to building top quality software to empower your shed business to thrive.
maybe this is the way to solve that, right? You just have this bath all in one where
Mhm.
you make it
Mhm.
you make it more financially turnkey for them, essentially.
Mhm. What I found is a lot of people, they need to win. A lot of us get stuck on stuff, and sometimes we just need a win. And the bathroom easy pod really, um, it gives you that win that you're looking for. So you get the cabinet, it's overwhelming, but you've got the bathroom done. So you know, so we got the bathroom done. Now let's figure out what are we going to do first. Well, let's run the vent. Let's run the vent out. Let's run the vent out. Let's run the cold water in. I mean, that's stuff that is really simple to do. I mean, it's anybody can run PEGs nowadays with these the new packs where you just slide them in and they just click together. It's so easy. You don't need any special tools. It's so straightforward. Anybody can do them, and they start building up wins. And I feel like that momentum is really key. I mean, whether it's your kids, whether it's yourself in life, building wins is a huge thing. So I'm a bit of I'm not completely sold on him, but I'm a bit of a Dave Ramsey guy. And if you look at Dave Ramsey, he's like, put $1,000 in savings, and it's like $1,000 doesn't cover anything. No, but it's a win. You need a win, and then you need a win, and then you need a win, and then you need a win. And I feel like the Easy Bath does that to a certain extent. It gives you a win. It gives you that win. It gets you started. It gives you a place to start at for sure, instead of just this big blank piece of canvas.
So what will your process be? Your buyers are going to be shed manufacturers, tiny home manufacturers, cabin manufacturers. Those are going to be your customers.
Mhm.
The end customer will use the product. So we can talk about the two-sided marketplace there, but to reach your customers, what is sort of your approach? What's your message to them? What are things that you would like to say to them in this early exploration?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that as a shed manufacturer you ought to think about is, do you want to move into the more move-in ready buildings, the more tiny homes, whether you take it all the way and you have a completely move-in ready building, or whether that's you want to offer some level of finish out. For example, I did a poll on the Shed Sales Professionals Facebook group recently, and it seemed like a lot of people are offering some level of finish out, whether it's just an electric package, whether it's a electric and insulation, or maybe do electric insulation and some type of interior covering. Well, this gives you that next level. So if you're already offering, say, insulation and electrical, this will mesh with you perfectly and get you into that next stage. If you're doing interior finish, this will take you into the position where you're a fully finished tiny home. And that's the key, is if you're ready to go to the next level and you're ready to move on and differentiate, make it have a differentiating, a unique selling proposition from you and your competition. I think the Easy Bath is a very simple, very easy. It doesn't really require very many man hours to do, and it really offers a huge step up. And the profit margins are really good on it. I have a really good program when it comes to purchasing wholesale, or if you want to do it on commission basis. There's great profit margins on them. Your salesman will love it. I mean, you take a $15,000 sale and make it a $30,000 sale without that big of an upsell, and without extra man hours on your end. Really, they're a really easy upsell for sure.
I'm a huge fan of creativity. You may know that if you listen very often, and I can't be a big enough advocate for creativity, because what is the one thing that we all say in the shed industry, right? Is we sell quality. We try to sell a quality product, at the right price, at a fair price. And I question, I'm gonna there again be an advocate for change, or resistance to change here. So bear with me a little bit on that. But why do you think that, at least my opinion is, and maybe you agree with it or not, but the industry doesn't always necessarily embrace change in any capacity, whether it's new products or software or whatever it is. And I think it's got a lot to do with us being conservative in nature, right? Like so I've went from, Democratic Party now to being Republican, right? Or I guess you
Mhm.
would say somewhere in between those lines now. So to draw the parallel with the political discourse we've had, Republicans are known as what? The party of no, right? Because they're conservative. They
Mhm.
never want to change anything, right? And a conservative nature is that you typically want to stay with what you've got to conserve what you have. But change is also inevitable. It's necessary, and creativity gives us that, right? It gives us better medicines to care for our body. It gives us, like, we're living, breathing souls, right? That's the way
Mhm.
God's ordained us to be. And we're getting deep here on
Mhm.
political, religious, and how they tie into Easy Bath. So I want to bring it back in a little bit. I mean, I guess my thought is, it seems like I'm a big fan of other products, some that advertise with us. I always push those products. And sometimes it seems like the industry has a little bit of difficulty embracing new products. What's your message so that we can help break that mold with the Easy Bath, so that people just embrace this naturally? Because I embrace it. I think it's awesome. I love what you're doing.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're completely correct when it comes to being being slow to change. And I think a lot of that goes back to the Anabaptist. By far the biggest demographic in the shed industry is the Anabaptist people, whether it's Amish or Mennonite, or there's 1,000 different variations of that now. But and the Amish have this thing, and I think the Mennonites have as well. It's a no until we say yes type of thing. The automatic response to any question is no until we say yes, and it really has served them well for sure. But I guess I kind of take it this way is, it's okay to be slow to change, but sometimes you do need to change in a very, very methodical, very thoughtful way. I don't want to sell these easy bath pods to somebody that's not going to be able to incorporate them into their business model. Like, I don't want to sell them just to sell them. I mean, kind of back what you were saying about the cabins, I want to work with manufacturers who where this incorporates them and takes them to where they want to go. There's and I'm gonna drop a name here, but Tough Sheds would never, this would not be a product that would match with their business model, right? It just wouldn't, because they're out there, they're sheds, they're a huge company, and to change quickly would be a poor decision on their part, I believe. Now, would I love to work with them? Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't want that huge account, right? But I don't believe it would be beneficial to them. So I think I want to, find the right people, the people who actually do want to move on and take the sheds to new heights. Right now, the shed industry is dominated by. There's a lot of these big mega companies. You got Old Hickory, Graceland, Dirksen. I mean, I'm missing a whole bunch of names when I'm saying these names, but it's dominated by them. But there's a nice niche underneath that. The people that built 200 to 600 sheds a year, and then that's kind of the niche that I'm targeting. And no, I'm targeting the smaller ones as well. But that little niche right there, there are people that you don't really have quite the buying power that these mega companies have. You're paying more that middle price when it comes to lumber and stuff, and so and there's one more thing that's really happening in the shed industry, and that's the race to the bottom. Right now, out here in Montana, it's a race to the bottom. Everybody's running a 10, 15, 20, I see 30, 40% discounts on their sheds. And it's a race to the bottom, be the cheapest. And the thought is that being the cheapest, you can get more sales. But my thing is, are you really out there to make the customers' lives better? If that is your goal, is to make the customers' lives better, yes, price is one of the things that makes the customers' lives better. Quality is one of the things that makes the customers' lives better. But to really make the customers' lives better and to actually improve their lives and to fix the problem they're facing, it definitely, you need to listen to them, and you need to be open to new thoughts and new concepts, and then say, okay, I'm trying. If you It's a mindset shift, going from, I'm going to sell every single building I can. I'll even lie a little bit, say little white lies, and maybe omit some things in order to sell a building. So I've walked into sales lots where the salesman is saying, "Oh yeah, you can finish this thing out for $800, or $2,000, or even $5,000." Well, that's a lie. You cannot finish out a cabin unless you're getting free stuff. Free, whether it's free labor or free materials. You cannot finish out a cabin for $5,000. And if you really want to listen to your customers and give them the best experience, like we were talking earlier, Shannon, I believe the Easy Bath really is a tool that that people ought to consider.
I embrace it naturally. I love new ideas that come to the forefront. I won't steal your thunder here. I don't want to mention a whole bunch of them, but just real quick, I mean, they're advertisers of us, so we always support them, like the Solar Blaster fans, the Zula system that Ares has created. I mean, and I'm not saying these are perfect for everybody, just to be clear, but man, look into these things, because there's guys like you who are creating, and now you're taking this to like this whole new level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're providing sunlight, they're providing solar fans and things like that move the air. Man, the bathroom is definitely one of those things that's like its primary functionality whenever it comes to somebody who's wanting to finish this thing out, whether they're paying cash for it or however they're doing it. They have to hire somebody to come in here and finish this out. And I would imagine you've already looked at price points versus being able to order this wholesale,
Mm-hmm.
put it in all as one unit versus hiring that labor out. It's much more cost effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Now, I'm going to say go back to the whole thing about the better fans and the fan vents and stuff. I've been thinking it down this line. All the new products that have come into the shed world were a better mousetrap. It was just a better mousetrap. I'm introducing a bear trap into a better mousetrap world.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's actually the first truly new product
Yeah.
in the shed industry
Yeah. Great.
that I can think of in like a long since the mule. Like
That's a good point. It doesn't exist. You have you have first movers advantage, and trust me, it won't last long in the shed industry. But
I hope it doesn't.
sometimes that's a good thing because that means people embrace it and the product's a good idea, right? Like I was, people asked me, they was like, "What are you going to do if somebody starts a podcast?" I was like, "Good,
Yeah.
good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good. Like, go for it.
I hope I'll be at the Shed Expo in it's in Grand Rapids this year, right?
To be in Knoxville this year, be back in Knoxville, 2025.
For some
So
reason I was thinking they were going to bring it back to Grand Rapids one more time, but okay, I'm wrong.
probably 20. I'm thinking maybe what 2026 maybe, but this year, like, yeah, we just got
It'll be Knoxville.
today, so
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be there, and I'm hoping there'll be 4 or 5 other companies there with the same product. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at. If it isn't, if I'm the only guy there, I'm gonna think I messed up on my communication somewhere. But back to the price point thing. So my products and their MSRP, the manufacturer suggests retail price is between 13 and 18,000, depending on which products you want. If you want the really fancy deluxe ones, and so you can either get the basic one, the classic, which has the vanity, toilet, and shower, the Supreme, which has the toilet, and then it has an actual bathtub and a vanity, and then has a hot washer dryer hookup. And if you go take the Supreme and match it out, it's 18,000. That's the suggested retail price. I did some quotes looking at a lot of things here in Montana, which I don't know how that goes across the entire nation. They plan on minimum 20,000. If you're building a house, your subcontractor or your general contractor will tell you to plan 40,000 per bathroom, and a master bathroom to go more like 60 to 70,000. That's what they tell people out here. So MSRP between 13 and 18,000 is very price advantageous. That's a really good price point, I believe. And that's the MSRP. We offer wholesale pricing and then commission based structures, which so there's a nice little profit for the salesman and the installer there for sure.
Man, I feel like this is like your next adventure. This is like your next breakthrough. I feel even talking to you about it initially before we had this conversation that you were passionate about it, and I wish I could find a way to, bring that passion to this episode, and I hope we have. We're almost at a point now where, Luke, we're either going to have to keep talking and make a part two to this episode, or we're going to have to cut it off here pretty soon. But you're just such an easy conversation to have, and you're welcome here anytime. I definitely enjoy talking to you any chance we get together. I wholeheartedly embrace this. I certainly hope that the industry does too, because at the end of the day, the customer drives the innovation, typically, the mindset for the creators, for the builders, and for those who are in the research and development kind of phase of their company. And sometimes that's you, Mr. Owner. If you're doing $1 million in sales, you're the R&D guy. You're also the shed hauler. You might be the shed seller. You might even be the chief trash taker outer. You do all of it, but especially for these companies that are larger companies that are looking for a third party option. They buy products all the time. You buy your lumber somewhere, your metal somewhere, and any other components that go into the sheds. And we're just seeing a demand for this more and more and more. And I completely embrace it. If people want to know how to get a hold of you, where's the best place to reach out to you? How can we be a resource to help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my website is myeasybath.com. myeasybath.com. My email is Luke, Luke, at myeasybath.com, or find me on Facebook. And then you can also give me a call if you're a young entrepreneur, if you're a young shed builder and you just want to chat, just give me a call. My phone number is 406 406-370-3601. 406-370-3601. Don't be afraid to give me a call.
Man,
Unless you're a scammer.
what a easy what a easy conversation to have. I always enjoy talking to you. Also, always enjoy talking to your brother, David. It's fun when we get to together and have a chance to chat. I got to visit his lot in Irvington. What a beautiful lot. One of the best looking shed lots I've ever seen when you pull up and see it from the road. It's just gorgeous.
You,
And
you, you want a lot of information about the shed industry, talk to David. He's a he's probably one of the best shed salesmen I've ever met.
I just enjoyed talking to him. You and him both. Maybe we can get you guys both on here one of these days or something like that, and get some stories from the days of old or something. So
The thing about David is David has never sold a shed in his life, but he sold himself a couple thousand times.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, he
that's
told me
that's the big difference.
we went out to eat lunch, and I think we stayed longer than he probably cared to because he probably had work to do. But I felt like it was fun just sitting there talking to him. So I felt like we talked for a couple hours, and I do enjoy it. My favorite thing about the shed industry is that, products and all that stuff do tend to come second place, products and services to the people. I do really appreciate the people. It means a lot to me to be able to continue to do something that we love. And if we can help you or your company in some way, well, we love that too. I feel like what goes around comes around, right? And that's not just a bad thing. That's a good thing. So, yeah, any other thing that you want to share? Any questions you have to ask me since I do this with everyone else? Any questions you want to ask me? Podcasting, sheds, just anything, life in general, anything you're just curious about in full transparency, I don't mind answering because I'm recorded here where I have to be vulnerable. So ask if you don't, it's okay. But I like to keep up my transparency.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I have a lot of questions for you. I appreciate what you're doing in the shed industry. Thanks for all the shout outs you're giving to the different people, bringing common knowledge together. The pursuit of knowledge is probably one of the most pure and one of the most virtuous desires there is in the world. Like if you look at my life and the things I've done, my life has always been a pursuit of knowledge, and because in knowledge there's power for sure. And my mom says I'm too smart for my own britches, so there's always that. But there's a there's there that I appreciate you bringing that pursuit. And here's the one thing I want to throw out there yet, and there's a bit of a plug, but the easy bath is just the beginning. We're just the beginning. I've got like so many new products that we'll be bringing out here in the next 5 years. So just don't touch the dial. There'll be a lot of more stuff coming out. So
Dude, I love to hear it. Like, God is creative. First thing we find out about his nature is he's creative. In the beginning, God created, and we're made in his image. So we're made to be creative. So I love any creative mind. I love just collaborating with them, sharing ideas and thoughts. Sometimes business happens, sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always a fan of being like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Tell me about it. Me and you, we live, eat, sleep, breathe sheds. It's just kind of like what we do at this point. And I appreciate your kind words. I love helping people. And sometimes helping people means I get to help myself. You know what I mean? And so we want to keep just being a resource, try to be a light to the industry, help where we can. We know that we compete sometimes in some areas, but we're very unique, Luke, in that we even invite our competitors on the podcast. We invite our competitors to the table. We even invite them to advertise because, we're for you. We're not against you. We know that we want to win. We want to do good in business, but that doesn't mean that we want to dominate and shut people out and things like that because after all, they're brothers and sisters in Christ. So like we know we're not going to win them all, right? But we certainly love talking to all of them and hearing their story. And that means you too, if you're listening today, feel free to reach out, whether it's Steel Kings on Monday, whether it's myself on Wednesday or Sam Byler on Friday. We love talking to you guys. We love having conversations. And I believe that communication is that key that links us all together, because you get education through that communication. And that's why our tagline, Luke, over here at Shed Geek Podcast is education through entertainment. We
Mhm.
love to have fun, laugh, joke, and cut up, but we love to be able to talk with people. Hey, listen, I'm a fan of prayer, and I feel like it's been a long time since I prayed on the podcast. Sometimes I get so caught up or we get long-winded. We have these long conversations that we forget to acknowledge and honor God in our process. And that's one area where I love this industry and your heart as well, too, that you are a Christian and you are loud about that. And I think that we need more of that in today's world. So,
It's a dangerous industry. We need God's hand over it for sure.
yeah, if you don't mind, we'll pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with Luke. Such a just a kind soul, a visionary, and someone who's trying to bring a product to market in the industry that he loves. I'd ask that you'd just bless his endeavor and open up doors that couldn't have otherwise been open other than without having your touch and your hand on that. Ask that you'd continue to bless this industry. We love it. We absolutely love being able to meet people not only in it, but those who come to our lots, those who are haulers that we get to go and deliver sheds to their house and witness to them in even some small way. Ask that you would just continue to provide us with those opportunities. Give us wisdom, give us discernment in all that we're doing. Continue to be a light as we walk, God, just as we can point all things and all gifts that we've been given towards you, the creator of all and the giver of all. And we thank you. We absolutely thank you for your son, for sending him to atone for our sins. And we just can't say thank you enough today, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Luke, appreciate you being on the show. It's been a good one for sure.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.